DLC has become something of a controversy over the past decade or so. Once upon a time, before DLC, you got expansions, providing add-ons to a game or a continuation of a game's plot while introducing new content. In the digital age of video games, however, DLC is something of a warped design, where gamers are being charged for character skins, weapon skins, and so on, something that was previously part of games as unlockables, for free I might add. Because of this, the sheer mention of the letters D, L and C being put together can bring a cringe to your face. But that certainly is not the case with Craftsman Games DLC Death Speaker for their turn-based strategy game Warbanners. Death Speaker is an expansion to Warbanners and released March 29, 2018. It introduces a whole new playable race and plot while retaining what made the base game so good. Despite a few imbalance issues, Death Speaker is a DLC that is done right and puts the AAA equivalent of it to utter shame. You take on the role of a tribe of orcs called the Pale Skulls, commanded by two orc brothers, Asher and Targon. They plan on getting another tribe, the Bloody Axes, to join them on their journey to an ancient rune, where they will sacrifice them to a god in exchange for immortality. Upon meeting the Bloody Axes, Asher is killed, leaving Targon to lead a small band of orcs and get the Bloody Axes to join him, and venture to the runes where he will gain immortality himself. But completing this goal is not as simple as it may seem. The plot to Death Speaker is interesting and really gives insight into the nature and beliefs of the orc tribes, who were one of the many enemies in the base game. Previously we only saw them as these savage beasts that were at war with the humans, but with Death Speaker we get to see beyond just their barbaric ways. You get an understanding of how they work, how they interact, and what they are like as a race of beings. It is nice to be put into the boots of one of the enemy races of Warbanners and get to see them in their natural habitats, and how they communicate and act amongst themselves. The plot is a completely different experience to that of the base game because of this, and it is really exciting to progress and discover. Like the main game, the plot is well written, extremely detailed, and progresses at a grand pace. My only criticism is that it is a bit short, coming in at only a few hours long depending on the difficulty you play the game in. But for a DLC that costs $5, I can say that for the plot alone, it is worth it. And if you enjoyed the story to Warbanners, you are going to enjoy Death Speakers just as much. The gameplay to Death Speaker is pretty much the same as the base game. There have certainly been some changes made to the game since I covered it at release last year. For starters, the difficulty levels have had some changes. Now easy is genuinely easy, while normal grants some challenge, and the higher difficulties giving more experienced strategists a satisfactory experience that puts their skills to the test. Previously, even in easy, the game was very difficult to the more casual strategy players like myself. But now the game is much more accessible for players of all skill levels, meaning even if you're not exceptionally good at strategy games, you can still play through the game without it feeling unfair or too hard. Another feature added to the game is the arena. There's an icon you can click on while on the world map when choosing your next destination to progress the story. The arena allows you to choose what race your opponents are and what type of terrain you're going to be fighting them in. How many opponents you fight against and how strong they are dependent on your army size and strength. This allows you to gain experience to level up your units, along with gold to buy supplies, assistance and new units. Previously you had to manage with the gold and experience you got from progressing in the game, and if you didn't play well, it resulted in you having to start the game over because the enemies would overwhelm you. Now that isn't the case anymore, and if you're finding a mission difficult, you can simply go to the arena, level up your units a bit and buy some extra supplies to make it that bit easier. The arena is an optional feature, so if you can withstand the temptation of using it, purists can still play the game as it was originally intended to. There has also been new options and settings added to the game, including the option to change how the dice roll works when units attack. Basically, some were commenting on how the RNG could go on massive unfair swings, where units were hitting quite often despite lower percentage chances of them doing so. The new option to change the dice roll configures the dice so these swings can no longer happen, and it applies to both the enemy and you. So if you felt the game's RNG was a bit too murderous previously, this option fixes that problem. Aside from those new features, the gameplay to Warbanners remains its same glorious self. The combat is turn-based with movement working off a hexagon grid and is as complex as before, with positioning of units, terrain, light, fatigue and so on taking effect on the success rate of hitting an enemy. Each unit type has its own attacks, strengths and weaknesses and overall are all very well balanced. The big difference is that you need to change your tactics in accordance with the new units, as they work quite differently to that of the human ones. This is especially the case with the spellcasters more so than the combat units, which is great as it presents a new gameplay experience. The one big criticism I have with Death Speaker, and this is going to sound ironic, is its difficulty. It's actually a bit easy. Yes, we've gone from the base game being a bit too difficult, while the expansion is a little bit too easy. The easy difficulty is a cakewalk, and normal isn't that much more challenging. A lot of this is due to the design of the campaign missions. In the second mission, where you need to kill the leader of the Bloody Axes in order to get them to join you, the leader is literally within a few hexagons of your units, while his units are scattered around the edges of the map. This results in you being able to charge a full-on assault on him before the enemy units have a chance to get near you. You only need to kill him to win the mission, so once he's dead, the mission is over. Even in the higher difficulties, it isn't a mission that would be too challenging. Then once you win that mission, your army size increases to 16 and you unlock all the Orcs units. This means that you have all the units available, even the most powerful of them to you from the second mission, a massive stack of gold to hire those units with, and a massive army to lay waste to your enemies. Then you have assistants that summon additional friendly units at the start of each mission, along with magic users who too can summon friendly units. Also, one unit can raise a corpse of a unit as a zombie, and if that zombie kills an enemy unit, it too turns into another zombie. Between the big army limit, the assistants, and the unit's abilities to summon additional units, you gain massive armies where you can win missions out of pure aggression over strategy. It is an imbalance that is caused primarily because of the plot progression and its structure, as opposed to it just being bad balancing and design. But nevertheless, it is a problem, and one that veterans of Warbanners who enjoy the challenge of the game will be disappointed about. You've gone from the underdog with Roderick's campaign to a crushing army of savages, or at least that is the case until the 8th mission in the game, where once again, and very unexpectedly, puts you in a ball-crushing situation. Before even starting the mission, one of your units are killed. Then you have enemies who cause the battlefield to go into darkness against units that become more powerful in the dark, while your units are weaker. Not to mention losing your ability to summon poisonous toads and raise the dead. It isn't impossible, but compared to the rest of the game, it really makes you plan out your equipment, unit, and forces you to actually strategize. It is just a very sudden and extreme difficulty spike, and that is just while playing in easy. I'd hate to think of what it would be like on hard or nightmare difficulty. Other than that, there's little else to really say about the gameplay that I haven't already done in my original review of the game. The combat is still enjoyable and the music works brilliantly with it, making every battle intense and exciting, and making the expansion just as great as Warbanners itself. Death Speaker is very much a video game DLC that is done right. It might have a few problems with imbalance, but overall it is a worthy expansion fit of its asking price. With a separate and interesting plot, world building and lore, and a whole new race to play as with its own unique units, there isn't really much to dislike about the game. Anyone who is a fan of the base game will immediately love the expansion and what it provides, as long as they are not expecting the same challenge levels Roderick's campaign did. And with that, I give Death Speaker an 8 out of 10. It is an expansion that gives a glimmer of hope when it comes to DLC. In an industry where DLC is nothing but a cash grab skins that are targeting those who are vulnerable, it is nice to see an expansion that provides exactly what an expansion should, and more indie developers should really follow Crassley Games' example of how it is done. If you love Warbanners, this DLC is definitely a must buy.